I woke up to, well, what do I got? Like 10 text messages. Someone die? Thankfully, not someone we cared about. But OJ Simpson, a guy that we saw on a Southwest fight, Danny G, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
3 months ago?
He was balling till the very end.
You know, we did see him. It was a funny story at the time because I believe it was Danny G. He was like, hey, it's OJ. And then we get up. We're like, oh, my God, it is OJ. He was on our Southwest flight.
He was in
First row.
A, row 1, seat A, right there.
Talking to some old lady, and that was the first time in my life I was hoping that karma wasn't real because I'm like, this is not the time you want a plane to go down because OJ's on it. I'm like, let's get through this flight. And
then mid-flight, we were all texting each other.
Yeah.
The challenge was out. Could someone get a selfie with OJ?
Oh, no, yeah.
And then
that's weird.
The plane lands, and we're like, is that in bad taste? And we didn't even have the chance because he was escorted off quickly.
He does have a giant melon, though. I always reference that story that Charlie Murphy told of, partying with Prince and all those dudes back in the day, and they'd be out and about at the clubs, and he would recall seeing OJ out and about back in those days. He goes, OJ would have this big-ass head, and I saw that head right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, he's got a melon.
Wearing an extra-large Bills hat on that flight.
He was, yeah. But, hey, I'll say this. Rest in peace, 76, cancer sucks, and I will say this, not that there's any sympathy for a guy.
Yeah, do we say rest in peace?
I mean, he's dead, right? But I will say his life was tragic. To think of a guy that had it all. Hall of Fame football career, athleticism, good looks, the smarts, broadcaster, charisma for days, spokesman, endorsements, an acting career. Dude, they were considering him for the Terminator. He could have been the next Schwarzenegger, right? He was in movies and comedies. The most likable guy in sports, had the world by the cojones, and then does something tragic, and that's what we remember him for. That's a tragic story in itself. I mean, what happened to his victims, first and first mostly, the most tragic. But I'm just saying that's a sad life, really, when you think about how he lived his final years.
Well, allegedly, Twitter world.
Yeah, but still, under the court of public opinion, everybody viewed him as a murderer. And, that's kind of sad when you had it all. Sort of a wasted talent sort of thing.
Well, my takeaway was, in an alternate universe, which we don't live in. Newsflash, we don't get to take a look at those alternate universes. We could think of them. But there's a world out there somewhere where this never went down, and today's a somber day. Think about it. From his mid-40s till mid-70s, almost half his life, OJ was chasing or trying to escape the murder vibes. Because before the 90s, maybe the most loved dude in the world of sports and entertainment.
That's what I'm saying. We would have had a life where he was still calling football games or maybe just went all Hollywood. Who knows?
Cameos in movies.
Right. We would have been watching him on Sunday football, calling a game. He'd be there with Terry Bradshaw or something. I don't know. He'd be up there
wearing his isotoners.
Yeah. Who knows?
Covino, you've made the point in the past that all happened before your girlfriend's time.
Yeah.
And you had to explain that it would be like Shaquille O'Neal today doing something like that.
Dead on.
The analogy
As
is
the
great.
kid say, dead ass.
Dead ass,
Dead
Danny G.
ass.
That would be like as if today Shaq murdered someone, and then the next 30 years until he passed away, he was chasing the stigma of he's a murderer.
Because he was that level of likable. Shaq being the most likable guy out there.
As you learned in documentaries and such, OJ was the black guy that racist white people were okay with. Like he crossed boundaries of like terrible people liked him because
he stomped and jumped over boundaries because he was too great to be denied. That's the truth. And he was handsome.
And there was another side of him, allegedly. And it is interesting because you woke up today to the OJ news, and you and I were talking about this earlier, Covino, that it is interesting, the response, because usually social media, someone dies, and there's a lot of people that even if they didn't care, they do that like they make it about themselves, like, you rest in peace, this person, and they see if they have a picture with that person, or it's very much like, look at me, that person died. With OJ, first thing I saw was like Caitlyn Jenner, like, yeah, good riddance.
Good riddance.
I saw other broadcasters like, yeah,
Who cares? He's dead. Good.
And I just wonder what the sentiment is. Is it rude to celebrate someone's death?
Yeah, a little bit, but there's no, like I said, there's no sympathy there because, again, of what he was guilty of, in my opinion, okay? But that doesn't mean I'm celebrating it.
Usually the friends you have that have more of that blue, dark humor.
Right.
Are their jokes a little more acceptable today? Like I saw a Ford Bronco that was extended. It was like a hearse. And I'm like, oh, bad taste, but maybe not because everyone hates OJ.
If
so
the coffin fits, it must be legit.
I
saw our buddy Craig Gass say, so what is it? Does that mean Cato Kalin's homeless now?
That means
I want to know what's up with Cato. But it's a tragic story. That I will acknowledge. It's a sad sort of existence. He was an old guy, and his family loved him. They were by his bedside, but again, everybody viewed him a particular way. For the most part, 76 years old. And I guess the question is, like, the reaction. What's your reaction? What's the proper reaction? How do you feel?
Listen,
do you acknowledge his life separately? Like, well, he was a hell of a ball player. Or no, do you just say, hey, he was a murderer?
Listen, Covino.
Yeah.
I don't look to social media and other people for my opinion. But I do look to see what the temperature of the public is. Like I'm not saying, how do I feel? Let me see what other people think. I'm not a sheep. But I will say I did go on social media to be like, how are people handling this? Because I'm curious. Because my personal thought is, I think he did it back in the day. I'm not going to celebrate the man's death, but I'm not like, tragic. OJ died. But let me tell you, I'd say 90% of the stuff I'm seeing on social media.
If Johnny Cochran didn't come up with a hell of a rhyme, I think it would have went down a different way.
Guys like Dr. Seuss.
I think that really sealed the deal for his innocence there. But, yeah, do you have that? Because I think it's misquoted sometimes. Let's hear it.
OJ Simpson in a knit cap from 2 blocks away is still OJ Simpson. It's no disguise. It's no disguise. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Because everybody says if the glove don't fit, and that's not what it
specifies it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I get why they say glove.
It's like, you know what? It's like a lot of famous movie quotes where it's like, that's not really what they said, but we'll roll with it.
Luke, I am your father. Play it again, Sam. There's a lot of things that weren't really said that way. I will say
Are you telling
that,
him to play it again?
No, not you, Sam. I'm talking about the movie quote.
I know.
I will say that the death of anybody is sad. Because, again, it's just it's a timestamp. Like, wow, that's over. Makes you feel old. It makes you question your vulnerability, right?
Yeah, and your
timeline, your expiration date. So I'll say that. And by the way, if we're going to acknowledge OJ, Hawaiian-born sumo champion Akebono Taro died today of heart failure at the age of 54. Now, this guy was a sumo grand champion legend, throwing it out there. Wrestled in WrestleMania 21 against the Big Show. So a guy you guys remember also passed away, but, you know, obviously OJ Orenthal James is going to overshadow that.
I don't know the sumo fella, but rest in peace.
I'm just throwing it out there because sometimes things are overlooked when
for the big sumo
bigger
audience.
Celebrities pass away.
Oddly enough, and sort of sad, is that when you think of these stories, so many of the people involved in the stories have also been gone for a while. Kardashian, Cochran, all these, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a timestamp, like you said, of like, man,
It just means you're getting old, right?
Is Judge Ito still around?
By the
right?
way, you want to know another like timestamp? When you're talking to your younger colleagues and they don't really know all those details because they don't even know the significance of how personable OJ was. Like Danny G referenced my girlfriend. When I tell her, like, no, that's like Shaq on the run because he killed somebody. She's like, no, it wasn't. I'm like, yeah, it was.
What does she know?
At the time. But it just goes to show you how much time has passed.
If you weren't there, you'll never really know.
Right. And we'll never forget that.
And Lance Ito is still around.
By the way, hold that thought because when 50 hits, we do it every Thursday. We throw it back on a Thursday. Our old school discussion involves the greatest scandals in sports and life, that being maybe the biggest of all. One of the biggest stories, and Ohtani obviously in the news, so not the same level of scandal, but a big story. So we'll go over some of those later.
Interrupted an NBA Finals game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you look back then, and I was talking to some of the guys here in the editing room,
Hey, by the way, are you going to judge people that are sort of defending OJ? Because I'm seeing a lot of that on social media, too, and I'm like, that's a really odd stance to take, knowing what most people think of what he did.
Very strange.
I do. I find that to be very strange.
Like what do they say? A weird hill to die on? Really? That's your
Hey,
argument?
I'm not going to come on Fox Sports Radio and defend OJ. What am I, out of my mind? You know what I mean? And I see people doing that.
What are you
I see
doing?
people on social media doing it too, and it's like, it's not funny to joke about somebody's death. All right, if that's where you're going with it, I get it. But to see the public reaction, like Rich said,
I do think
is really interesting, and that's what we're sort of talking about now.
Well,
the
when was
public reaction.
When was the last time a quote-unquote public villain died? Like you and I, Covino and I said, I'm being serious, other than a terrorist, like they got Bin Laden, Saddam Hussein. When was the last time someone died where it was okay to be like, good?
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, maybe like Epstein, or
Yes,
someone that has
That's a good one,
but
yeah.
someone whose legacy is
Charles Manson.
terrible, right? Yeah, Charles Manson. Like OJ was in that category for a lot of people. So
And
if
his story is more tragic, and I'll show, I guess, an ounce of sympathy there because of how great he could have been. He was. How great he was.
threw it all away.
And could have been, and he ruined his own legacy and other lives along the way, which is tragic. That's terrible.
Think of the
That's
chapters.
a terrible story.
Think of the chapters of Orenthal James Simpson, collegiate Heisman Trophy superstar, NFL stud, rushing for thousands of yards, actor, spokesman,
Those Hertz commercials,
like
man.
Hollywood playboy in a way. Like he
Pioneer
was
chicken.
he was the man.
He had it.
He
In quotation marks.
he
really
had
did.
Whatever it is.
He really did. He really did.
on the
And
sidelines.
everybody loved him.
Yeah, everyone loved OJ. And then you go through is he a murderer chapter? Then you go through stealing memorabilia,
But that's
going
what he
to,
actually did prison time for.
going to jail, losing the civil cases, and then after
That's the Twitter era.
and then I was gonna say, then after that, it was like, are we forgetting what OJ did? Because then he'd be like, hey, Twitter world, fantasy
Twitter world,
football.
it's me, OJ.
If I were you, I'd start Justin Jefferson. And you're like, is this guy talking about like a?
Let's just act like it didn't happen.
I think that's
Well, he commented on other crimes and things like that,
Yes.
and that's where all of us turned our heads like, what?
Yeah, it's weird.
Living in irony.
But it's also, you know what? I do sympathize with old people. At the end of the day, he was an old guy, too. 76 years
Yeah,
old.
now you just have a good heart, Covino.
Yeah, now I'm
Let's
just-
not-
yeah.
what are you doing?
Now I'm just forgetting, I guess, what he was accused of. But
By the way, he rushed for over 11,000 yards in the NFL.
It's wild.
it's amazing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
and
what
almost
he did.
1,000 more just off of kickoff returns.
Let me tell you something, Danny. I know that Covino and I have watched because we've talked about it in the past, but we weren't pals yet. Did you watch all of those OJ documentaries, series? They were all fantastic. The one with Schwimmer and
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr. and all. They've done a good job covering that story in a dramatic retelling, in a documentary form.
I'll tell you what, if you're a younger fella and you missed out on all that drama, because that went on forever, the whole Lance Ito, Judge Ito, Cato Kalin time of our life, that Cuba Gooding Jr. series, what was it called? It was great. Definitely worth the watch. And it'll probably be advertised tonight. I'm sure you'll see it on a thumbnail somewhere to watch. Yeah,
Yeah.
The People versus OJ Simpson, that one.
Remember the dancing
American Crime
Itos?
Story, definitely worth the watch.
Did you ever see the compilations of Schwimmer
Yes.
as Kardashian saying juice?
Yeah.
Juice. The juice. OJ, juice. Guy said juice 100 times in that docuseries.
So we're basically saying your reaction on the reaction.
Your reaction
if
on the
you'd love to
reaction.
if you'd love to share your reaction, 877-99 on Fox, because like Rich was pointing out, you're just left with a weird feeling. You don't know how to necessarily feel or publicly react about it because you don't want to say the wrong things. Is there only one right thing to say? Like Caitlyn Jenner said, good riddance. Uh-huh.
My thought is, again, I'm not looking to form my opinion.
I think that's in bad taste, though, don't you, with Caitlyn Jenner's reaction?
No, because Caitlyn Jenner is close to the story.
Close to the story, but for
Bruce
someone else
Jenner
to say good riddance,
Bruce Jenner at the
I would
time,
just say nothing at all.
who became Caitlyn Jenner, is way more close to the story than you are. So if Caitlin wants to say, yeah, good riddance, yeah, F OJ, yeah, good, then what are you to say, right?
I feel you on that, but I'm saying if someone else were to react that way, like I said, I understand you feeling that way. I just probably wouldn't say it.
Yeah, I am just.
Am I affected? Am I losing sleep? No. For me, it's this timestamp.
I think my big takeaway, besides it being just a timestamp and OJ's gone, is that we often go to social media and, God forbid someone dies, some old actor or athlete. The sentiment is always people that you didn't even know that cared about that person. I don't know if they do it as like a look at me thing, but like, I can't believe so-and-so died. And it's just a lot of sympathy. And you're like, you were a big fan of whoever? I just think with OJ, I was so curious. I'm like, ooh, how are people going to react to this? Is there going to be anyone that's like, rest in peace, Juice? Didn't see a lot of it.
It goes back to the old Bronx Tale saying, though, saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And that guy had all of it and threw it all away.
Well, he used a lot of the talent, but just could have.
But it's erased.
Well, I said to you.
No one, everybody knows, but no one's going to remember him for being a great like that.
Danny, not to
he erased his own legacy.
Not to throw our ages out there, but you're in your 40s.
Yeah, late 40s.
Now, OJ committed this crime, allegedly, in his 40s. So imagine if right now, Danny G, up until this point, everyone's like, Danny G, great guy, he's a dad, he's a good fella, great producer, radio pro.
Don't you wish he admitted it, though, like on his deathbed?
Well, I've thought about that, too, so hold that. But
okay.
If Danny G, all of a sudden, knock on wood, murdered someone, and then from this point...
You better put more than knock on wood on that.
Okay.
Come on, man.
If Danny...
When you said that, he looked at me.
Oh! Like if you murdered Isaac,
Better
right?
watch out, Isaac.
So if you murdered someone today and then spent from 40-something until 76 when he passed away, almost half your life was running from the stigma of murderer, because before that,
tragic,
he was loved. And I'm not.
You could say deserved, but still sad.
Listen, don't take this, anyone please, as an anti-Donald Trump statement. I don't care what your politics are, but I always thought it was interesting how before he became a politician, rappers, regular people, everyday folks loved Donald Trump. He represented.
I mean, we worked in New York. Everybody loved Donald Trump.
He represented opulence
Always
and money.
cameos in movies.
People love Donald Trump. He becomes a president, and he becomes polarizing where you love him or you hate him, and you look back and you're like, if you knew that old Donald Trump, you would have been like, yo, one day half the world's going to hate you and half are going to be obsessed with you. It's like, I'm saying, it's like a changing dynamic.